Lady and gentlemen, boys and girl, welcome to the BDMA channel. I just want to do a quick run through or rundown or breakdown of tonight's UFC 278 card, and try to help any gamblers or people that maybe just want to look cool at a party. I don't know people's intentions. I don't even know what my audience is at this point, because it is much more domestic than it was in prior years due to current political madness, nonsensical madness. So as I briefed this card already, I don't think anything prior to the main card besides one or two maybe are worth telling you what to do with. Sean Woodson is a big time prospect, but that's a big line at minus 340 as well. He's going against Luis Saldana. But Woodson's like a 6'2 featherweight, which within itself is pretty impressive. And he uses his length well, from what I understand. I haven't like really studied tape on him, so I don't want to go too hard in the paint with that pick. But Woodson's one to watch for sure. Jared Gordon as well, although I don't know what happened this week with him. I think Uncle Chael kind of touched on it, something about him disarming someone that had a bat. It's just, some of these stories just right before a fight sound crazy. If that's true, that might have rattled him, and it would change my thoughts on the process a tad, because how do you get that out of your mind? I mean, a bat isn't a fight. That's an assault. You know, that's a battery charge waiting to happen. So I don't want to go strong with that pick. Gordon, I do like his system of kind of wrestle boxing or shoot boxing, as John or G or Frost would call it. You know, they've implemented that at TriStar, for example, which is kind of striking into takedowns and then a reset after X amount on the ground. I don't know if that's a secret. I don't know if I should be talking about that, but they call it shoot boxing, based upon shoot the box. And the other one that I'll cover that's prior to the main card is the one that's heading off capping off the prelims, which is Marcin Tybura versus Alexander Romanov. Romanov's undefeated, and that boy can crack. He's from Moldova, and Marcin's from Poland. Just two places that produce tough people. But Tybura's chin has been cracked a few times, and he's already got 7 losses. Romanov does not. Sometimes that 0 in the loss column can be a little dangerous for someone who isn't as grounded as a martial artist should be, or they're more sociopathic like a John Jones, and they just win at all costs kind of a person. I don't think he's the latter. I'd say Romanov is the former, and I'd certainly pick him to win. The line's a little much at minus 340. Because he hasn't faced anyone at that level yet, and Tybura is a couple spots ahead of him in the top 15, so it seems like a little bit of a hefty line at minus 340, but I'd still pick him to win. So moving on to astonishingly, the main card, which is going to lead off with a light heavyweight. Here we go with putting the crowd to sleep. Maybe not with these two, but at light heavyweight you have Tyson Pedro at minus 730. What? Versus Harry Hunsucker. I'd avoid that. Just avoid that. There's like, I mean, if it's that weighted, I don't think Tyson Pedro has done enough to, unless I'm missing something, to kind of qualify that line. He's 8-3, going against guys 7-5. I understand he's a big dude. He's 6'3", but he's a light heavyweight. The other guy's 6'2". He's got a little bit of a reach advantage. I don't know. 8-3. 8-3 minus 730. Unless this is some layup fight that I'm unaware of. I don't know. That could be a trap bet. Avoid it. And I can't believe that's on the main card. Next up is another Wu Yanan versus Lucy Pudilova. She'll say she's check. That's a pick 'em. I don't know enough. Again, avoid. Sorry. I didn't make the card, however. The next match isn't getting nearly enough time by anyone, really, in my opinion. You have Jose Aldo at number 3 going up against Merab Dvalishvili, the Georgian, trains out of Serra Longo, or with Ray Longo anyway. He's a monster. This is so interesting because Merab has been hit by the kitchen sink in about, I don't know, 50% of the fights I've seen him in, and he just finds ways to out grapple and kind of just smush people into paste. Opposing him in this pick'em, by the way, so whoever you pick is who you pick, kind of thing. Well, Aldo's plus 115, Merab is minus 135. Aldo has incredible takedown defense with fast hips. He doesn't counter wrestle. It's not a sprawl and brawl style. It's kind of athletically based, and with his jiu-jitsu background, I think he probably started developing that kind of ballerina foot escape with head control, kind of knee to the mat, weighted pressure on the head, and then kind of taking advantage of a loose hook by spinning out. You got to be really fast, quick, agile. You got to have great dexterity. I mean, you got to have a lot of athletic kind of genetic traits in order to have his takedown defense. I mean, his hips are just so incredibly fast, which may come from his years of playing high-level soccer in Brazil. I don't know, that's just a theory. But I struggle with this fight for a winner only because you've got young and hungry versus old lion. It's kind of the classic UFC tried, true, and tested recipe for a good fight, and I'm not going to be surprised by either to win this. But I don't think either's a bad pick. I think what's smart in this is something I used to do, and I don't necessarily recommend it. But sometimes if say I trained at Serra Longo, or I don't know if it's still called that because I don't see Matt Serra around much, but if I train with Aljamain and Merab in the bunch with Ray Longo, Ray Janelle, etc. I'm rooting clearly for this guy. Now, if I'm Brazilian, I'm assuredly rooting for Aldo, as if there is a place that roots for their guy, it's certainly Brazil, and their obsession with knocking people's teeth out I don't quite understand, but I kind of admire their nationalism, to be honest. So, who you like might be the opposite of who you pick. I used to do this when I did gamble. I would put money on the person that I didn't want to win if I had a stake in the outcome, say. So that way, at least, if whomever I was rooting for lost, there was still a golden ticket. This may sound crazy to most because you want added incentive to your rooting interest, but I don't really have much rooting interest anymore, given my job, if you will, whether it's as an analyst, as a coach, as a teacher. I gotta be as impartial as possible. I'm a huge Aldo fan. I'm a huge Merab fan. I like the Longo camp. I like those guys. I like the way they both fight. Aldo's one of the greats, pound for pound, top 5 of all time, no doubt. He doesn't get enough credit, really. I think we all know why. And it's nefarious, of course, like most things WME related as of late. So it's really tough to pick a winner. I don't know, if I'm against a wall, I gotta pick Aldo, because I think Merab's striking is significantly less technical than Aldo's, and taking Aldo down, I mean, Mendez pre-USADA over 5 rounds took Aldo down maybe 2 times in 20-something attempts and didn't keep him down. But these are pre-Khabib days, when people kind of got takedowns and maybe landed a few shots from closed guard and rode it out. I mean, it was a very different time for the ground as far as ground striking is concerned. So it's tough I think the path for Merab to win is going to be a little bit more surprising to my eye than the ones that I see potentially for Aldo. Aldo's a high level black belt. You never see it, but you may, because even if Merab does take him down, Aldo's, and I'm sure you've heard like Rogan repeat it ad nauseum, but all those submitted guys like Cobrinha, like he's a legit black belt, like not a guy from Chicopee. He's a legitimate Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, trained under Dede, which is, Andre Pederneiras is a fighter himself. He's produced enough talent to not have to say much more than that. So I'm gonna pick Aldo to win that fight as the dog. My rooting interest is very down the middle. I don't care who wins, but I just want to see a good fight. The next one, equally tricky, is Costa versus Rockhold, but with that line of minus 360 on someone that's got one fight left on their contract, this one, against the guy that in his prime before whatever, I don't know if arrogance got the best of him, or if the newfound microdosing of mushrooms is helping him. It seems to help a lot of people, including friends of mine. And I understand, the battle with getting sober personally. You could see either a rejuvenated Rockhold that, put on a ground clinic against guys like the Barbarian Tim Boych. That triangle into Kimura off the takedown attempt, little conversion that he did. What he did to Chris Weidman to win the title, the way he beat Bisping in their first fight, the way he beat Machida. I mean, Rockhold of then was just a phenom. I mean, his striking is fun to look at, and his grappling is really where he excels. So if this fight hits the ground, I think Costa's going to be in some trouble. And that's what happens when you roll with guys like Khabib, Islam, DC, Cain Velasquez, etc., 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 for years at AKA. Now, Rockhold's moving around so much, I just don't know what to think. He either goes to gyms that spar a little harder than I like, Sanford, or he's not sparring allegedly at Perillo's. Now, if I'm Perillo, and I'm not, but he's phenomenal, I'm working on Luke's defense. His offensive striking is fantastic. It's his defense that's suspect. And he does this pull thing as a tall guy where he gets caught blindsided the same way Bisping and Yoel caught him. That's always where he's susceptible. And someone like Costa, who has a pretty damn mean hook, hits hard to the body with kicks, and I think has a pretty decent head kick as well. Luke, it's a blind left hook to a southpaw, because this is an open stance fight. Luke fighting from southpaw, Paulo Costa fights traditional. His left hook is kind of over that blind shoulder that Luke just keeps lax, and his hands aren't usually very high. Now, I don't suggest that he changes his footwork and his style entirely, but I do suggest that he works on his defense, and his clear blind eye first strikes seem to come from his right side as a southpaw, or his weak side. And if Costa goes body kick or inside leg kick into a 3, like a reverse Dutchie, I usually call it, something like that, or it could be a body kick into the hook or a straight right into a hook, any of those are going to be perfectly dangerous, unless Perillo has worked on the prior stated issue, which is just Luke's, honestly, his defense. If his defense holds up, and or this fight hits the ground, I think Luke is the pick, not Paulo Costa. So at minus, look at it this way: at plus 295, you lay down 100, you win 300. For Rockhold, 200 profit. I think it's worth putting the money on. Paulo Costa seems much more interested in spray tanning than fighting, and Luke looks pissed. Maybe too much so. Maybe a little too emotional for my liking for a guy that, looks like Jamie Lannister. Actually, Luke Rockhold is Jamie Lannister. So the question is, if you watched any Game of Thrones or understand the reference, are we going to see him pre-getting his hand chopped off, or are we going to see the golden hand, Luke. Luke. Uh, it really comes down to that. I think you'll know after round one if I don't know if I'm going to have time, but if I'm on Twitter, I'll usually kind of adjust things I may have said earlier if I don't like something I see. But they're both on weight, which is usually the last thing I wait for in the face-off. And Luke looks confident, but he never lacked that. I just hope he's not overconfident. It's an interesting fight. It really is. A lot of people are calling it like the people's fight, whatever. I'm okay with that analogy. But I don't think Costa's going to roll through him like a lot of people are thinking. But it could happen if Luke's just kind of, I don't know, just trying to make some money. You know, former champ, I'm sure he gets quite a bit to show. But I'm sure he gets quite a bit to win as well. So, yeah, just things to expect. If Costa starts with low kicks and body kicks early that are landing clean, it might be a long night for Rockhold, or at least a decisive one for Paulo. If it hits the ground, it might be an instant game-changing type thing. Luke's that good on the ground. That's something people just plain don't talk about enough. His defensive wrestling is more like jiu-jitsu. He just rides the wave, pun intended, I suppose, since he surfs. And he just makes these really fluid transitions throughout until he gets a good position. And if he ends up on top, he's just very good at delivering damage. So I like Luke as a human being. I don't know anyone that likes Paulo Costa as a human being. So rooting interest wise, obviously the AKA boys have been fair to me as far as I know for a long time. So I guess I do have a slight bit of rooting interest there. I just can't imagine putting down on Paulo Costa at minus 360. That just doesn't seem like a reasonable line. It seems too high. This is a former champion, a former world beater of a champion too. Because the guys I'm telling you he beat them in their primes pretty handily. And obviously in the main event, which is probably why you tuned in, Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards, minus 340 plus 280 for Leon. Minus 340 is a little high, but I think it's probably right, honestly, to get the gambling somewhere around 50-50. And I don't see a path for Leon to win this fight. I really don't. I just got to be honest. I like Leon. I think he's a beautiful striker to watch. He's very technical. He has great footwork. He's very creative with his fundamentals, as much as that sounds like a false dichotomy, if you will. I love his elbows close. A lot of his best skills about creating short angles, meaning kind of like from the clinch and then, you know, a step to the side to create that little 30 degrees so you can't be hit by their X, but your Y is open. He's good at that close quarters kind of thing. Distance-wise, okay. But he did a lot of like clinching, and he's easily kind of moved backward because I don't think he likes grappling much. Usman, with his endless endurance and sudden power, that is just getting better and better, despite all theories as to why. I'm not going to get into that because I don't know, honestly. I will say that him working with Trevor Whitman was a brilliant move, because he'll get a lot of that one-on-one attention that you so desperately need as a fighter to get to that upper echelon of skill. And I think picking Leon might be a hoping, a hopa, or as you might call it, an alter, Greg. It might be wishful thinking to pick Leon, because I'm hearing a lot of like, Leon's going to pull. I don't see it. I think Usman wins decisively. Maybe not by finish. He might grind him out for 5 rounds and just kind of wear him out, especially if he uses his wrestling. The one thing that worries me about Kamaru is how much he's fallen in love with said improved striking and footwork and switch dancing. He's kind of like, it's almost as though he's watching Rose or Justin and saying, I can do that. But his body type and his wrestling base, and the fact that he uses wrestling offensively, and he's great off the cage or getting people there, and Leon's susceptibility to being there just makes for like a lot of X's and O's that favor Kamaru. but it's also this kind of trying too hard thing he has going on. Now I know him. I didn't call him Kamaru. I'm not going to get into what everyone else called him. This was back in like 2014 or 15 when he was down in at the Jocko Training Center. And I like the guy. I really do. He's very intelligent and a very nice guy. But I just think this LL Cool J thing is kind of it might be like the overlooking process, right? Where you overlook the up and coming guy. The problem in Leon's case is he doesn't have knockout power. He just look at his record. He doesn't knock anyone out, and he's not much of a submission threat. I don't see how he'd submit Kamaru anyway. But just gotta call a spade a spade. Kamaru has the knockout power to finish it, the wrestling to take it to the ground, that incredible fence kind of clinch work that he does. And maybe a cut could change things for Leon because he does have those sharp elbows, but I think of a minus 340 type line like that, a 3-1. Rarely do I like someone as much as I like Usman to win this fight. I just think, I mean, putting him with GSP to me is hilarious, and I think the company's just trying to create stars rather than letting it happen again. This is kind of like a WWF issue. You cannot create stars in real fighting. They have to it has to happen organically. And they've been pushing Usman down our throats so hard for so long. He's the greatest ever, the greatest pound for pound fighter of all. It's like, dude, he's fought Colby and Masvidal and Gilbert. But you look at GSP's resume in an era where 170 was just what 135 is now, or 155. It was just top to bottom killers, just killers. 205 was like that back then too. Neither are now. A lot of 205ers look like, they have bodies like me. It's just what's going on out there. So, yeah, I think the smart pick there is Usman. I think Rockhold is a super sleeper kind of a pick, but it's a little riskier. I think Usman's a little safer, or not, these aren't little, a lot safer. But just don't be surprised if Rockhold comes out and starches a guy that's clearly disinterested in fighting, right? Costa's just, the guy's insufferable. And that's about all I got for these. Sorry, it's not a elaborate breakdown. I didn't have the time to kind of do X's and O's and show. In this fight, Leon tended to take a back step when X Fighter threw a right hand, and I just didn't have time for X's and O's. I am, when I get time, I am going to follow up my Hamzat versus Diaz. And I got 2 follow-ups I think I'm going to do on Oliveira versus Islam. One will be grappling, and then I'll probably do a part 3 that's like a summation that I'll put out right around the fight. But I don't want to put them all out like bang, 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 because it kind of defeats the purpose. You want to spread them out a smidge. So if anything interesting happens during these cards that I find you can learn from, that I saw, and I feel comfortable teaching, or at least breaking down, then I will. But we're just going to do this for now, and hopefully you dig. I got a link to my Patreon and or my BDMA Club, which is right here on YouTube, both in description. And with the BDMA Club, you get access to hundreds of videos that most people don't. And Patreon's just a way to keep me doing this, essentially. I don't make any money really, so maybe $3 a month doing this. But my Patreon, my patrons and my club members on YouTube at least make it so I'm breaking even, and it's kind of worth it, which is crazy that I haven't walked away from this a long time ago, but I do love it, and I do love my fans. I love all of you. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed or got something out of this. I wish I had more definition to my picks, or more confidence in them, but this card is weak as fuck, let's be honest. I like the top 3, but that's, after that, there's like not too many prospects. I'm like, whoa, I gotta check out X. So I like 2 dogs of the top 3. I like Aldo, I won't be surprised if he loses. I like Luke as just I don't know. I just remember the Luke that was a savage Luke Skywalker type. Although I think the Jamie Lannister comparison is probably perfect because the dude's issues have been routed in talent. It's like his talent is his curse, as odd as that may seem. You know, things when things come easy to someone often, when things go the other way, they really don't know what to do. And again, I can relate on some levels, certainly not his level, but or Jamie Lannister's level. I don't. My father's nothing like Tywin. And I will stop making Game of Thrones references and just finish up by reiterating that I don't see much of a way for Leon to win. If he does, great. Then him and Georgie can settle their little beef, and it'll create some parity in the division, which is much needed. But I don't think we're gonna see that till Hamzat gets there. And who knows if he'll slip on a banana peel? You know, like, sport's funky that way. But I think Usman, I mean, who's improved more since their last fight that he won? You know, I think it's clearly Kamaru. So that's all I got. Thanks for tuning in, and just if you got something a little more specific or a fight you want to ask, like a kind of a singular question about, just leave it in the comment section, and I'll try to reply ASAP. Okay, thanks for tuning in. Cheers.